Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Monday and another week at school. And I was inspired to use this song because it links with our theme this week, which is all about our school. And I've been inspired this week for our theme to go back in time. Go back in time and see what we can find out together about the history of Northowram Primary School and about how long children have been coming to school. And the first part that got me kind of interested in this was one of our lovely parents of two young boys, you know who you are, had asked me, have you ever done an assembly, Mrs. Scarterfield, on the Northowram Primary School badge and what it means? We all wear these on our jumpers and cardigans and sports kits, but have we ever thought about what that symbol means? And how long, in fact, have we been having that badge, and how long have we been wearing uniform to come to school? Well, that just got me thinking really about all sorts of things to do with history. History is brilliant. It's so exciting, and it's so important to think about the past because that helps us understand the present. So I've been digging about in school this week to try to find out anything I can about our school's history. Now, I've worked at Northowram Primary School for 12 years now, which you might think is quite a long time because it's longer than you've all been alive. So it is quite a long time. I agree. However, in the history of our school, it's no time at all. So have a little think. Put your hands up and tell your teachers. For how many years do you think children have been coming to learn to read and write and do their maths and learn their geography and all of that, all of those things that you learn? How many years do you think children have been coming to our school? What do you think? 50? 70? 100? Surely not. That's a long, long time. Well, I will tell you that very soon our school will be having its 150th anniversary of it being built, because our school, of course, it wasn't always where we're sitting now, where you're sitting today. It was just down the way. And when the school was first built, it was the building that you all walk past when you come to school. That's the old school building there, taken from above. And that was Northowram School. That was the first school that was built. In terms of when it was built in 1874. So if you do your maths, you can kind of work out how long ago that was. And I figure that in 3 or 4 years' time, it will be 150 years old. Now, I've got an engraving here. I don't know whether you can see it. This, if you ever come to my office, you'll see this. It sits on my windowsill. I don't know whether you can see that. Can you see? Somebody has etched onto glass a picture of Northowram School as it was, and underneath it says Northowram School built 1874, and that date's really, really important. So think about that when you walk past the old school, because it's now houses, isn't it? And people live there. In fact, some of you or your families might live there. 1874. What was happening in 1874? Well, the most important thing is that it was in the Victorian era. And it was the Victorians who decided that children really should have the right to an education. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. That all children should have a right to an education. And many, many schools around Halifax and all over the UK were built at that time by the Victorians, because before then, most children, unless you were very wealthy and you were educated at home, couldn't read or write. They were illiterate. They couldn't read or write. And, of course, they would be sent out to work at a very young age, at your age. You would have, I don't know, living in Halifax, you would have been working in the factories or down coal mines, earning money. And you wouldn't be able to read or write. And the Victorians thought, no, this isn't right. We need all of our children and our future generation to have the basic skills that they need. So they went around, spent lots and lots and lots of money by building schools pretty much in every village in the United Kingdom. And this was ours. This was Northowram Primary School, built in 1874. So how do we find out what life was like in 1874 and what it might have been like to go to our school all those years ago? Well, unfortunately, I don't know any 150-year-olds to ask about that. So I've had to do some other bits and pieces of digging, not literal digging, but rifling through things in school. And I found a special cupboard, almost a bit like a secret cupboard in school. And when I opened it, I found something really special that I didn't know was there, even though I've worked here for all of this time. And I feel bad about that, because knowing about our school's past is really important, helps us to feel connected to all of the people that came before. And in this special cupboard, this secret cupboard, I found lots of these. I'll show you them. They're very, very special. If you're interested in history, this is a primary source of evidence. This is absolutely fantastic. I found lots of these. And these are school logbooks. Can you see how old this is? It's bound in leather and it did have a padlock. Now, some of them are locked. I can't get into them. But some of them, somebody at some point has had the cleverness to attach the key to the padlock so that I could get into them. And back in time, going right back to the Victorian times, I didn't know this either. One of the jobs of the head teacher or the school secretary was to keep a logbook. And every single school day, the headmistress or the headmaster had to make a log of important things that happened that day. And children, you won't believe this, they go right back to when the school first opened, all through the years, all through the war years, and we're going to have a look at that probably tomorrow. But I found there's loads in there. Some, like I say, were locked, so they're still a secret. Who knows what's in those? But I was lucky enough to find one that wasn't locked, even though it has a padlock. And this book here is the very first logbook from Northowram Primary School, and it was started on the very day that the school was opened. I am literally holding history in my hands. Now, I've been through and read all of these. They are amazing. It's made me feel and realise I'm not the first head teacher to have led our school, and all of the history that has come before me has made me feel quite special, really, to be part of that. But I thought you would like to hear the very first entry in these logbooks. I'll just show you an example of what they look like inside. There, look. So somebody has handwritten for every day and every week an entry about what's been going on in school. And the very, very first entry in the Northowram Primary School logbook, even though it was built in 1874, it didn't open until 1876. And this page here, right here, is the very start of our school's history. And look how well it's lasted. They must have written in really good pen, and this must have been very high quality paper for it to have lasted nearly 150 years. And I'm going to try, handwriting's quite difficult, it's beautiful, but it's quite difficult to read you the very first entry for our school. It says, "This school was opened on Monday, the 21st of October. As the school was totally deficient in school furniture," that means it had no furniture or anything inside it, "nothing was done except taking the names of the children who came forward." Because education wasn't yet compulsory, so not everyone had to come to school. But of course, most families were really eager to send their children to school. And the school registers were marked for the first time on Wednesday afternoon. Goodness me. And of course, the children wouldn't have known anything. They wouldn't have known their alphabet. They wouldn't have known how to read or write. They were coming to school for the very first time. Isn't that amazing to think of? I wonder what they made of it. We'll have a look at some old photographs later on in the week. Now, this is a bit one for the teachers here. Did you know that even back in the Victorian times, schools were inspected just like we are now? Children, we haven't had an inspection since 2016 by Ofsted, but we are expecting one probably after the summer holidays. But I thought I'd read you the very first inspection report, because schools were visited by inspectors every single year and they had to write a report and what it says about Northowram Primary School back then. Inspector's report. The state of the school does credit to the mistress. I'm guessing that's the headmistress. The children are fairly intelligent and writing in the first class, reading in the first and second classes, and needlework have been very successfully taught. I think a lot of the pupils that would have come to begin with would have been the girls, because the boys would have been out at work. Listen to this. Discipline is hardly so well maintained as it should be. Discipline, that means behaviour. So it sounds like the children were quite naughty, and I suppose they would be, because they'd never been to school. They didn't know about the school rules. Now, this was interesting. I just kept reading and reading. I took these home on Friday night and I couldn't stop reading. And I've moved on further in the year. And I found it quite profound, actually, quite important and quite moving. You know how we've had a really difficult year with COVID and all the school closures, etc. It's really easy to think that we have had a tough time, but that we're the first people to have a tough time. And reading the school logbooks makes me realise that in some ways we're quite lucky. At that time, back in the Victorian times, back in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, 1900s, there was a lot of illness and disease around, and people weren't vaccinated against things that we just don't get anymore. And all throughout the log, there are lots of sad pages where there are records of pupils and teachers dying, sadly. But I think it's interesting, certainly from a point of view of history, to hear about some of these diseases that we just don't have anymore because of advances in medicine. It made me feel really grateful for that. It says here about 40 children now absent. Well, I think they only had about 80, so that's about half of them, from measles and whooping cough. Whooping cough was a really nasty cough that children got at that time. There are fresh cases every day. And measles, now we have a vaccination for that. Probably when you were, I think it's one of the ones that you won't remember because you'll have had it when you were a baby, an injection that means that you don't get measles. And those are two diseases there that we just don't get anymore because scientists learned how to manage them, just like they've learned how to manage COVID and create vaccinations for it. And it's amazing now to think of these diseases that we barely hear of anymore. So yeah, that was extraordinary as well. And there's lots of stories in there that still are quite similar. It talks about the children going on nature walks and collecting acorns and leaves. It talks about Christmas concerts and the children learning songs, and all sorts of things in there that are quite similar to what we do now. But yeah, what a great thing. And for those first teachers and that first headmistress, what a big day that must have been. The opening, the very first opening of Northowram Primary School. So have a think about that. Have a think about what it might have been like for children who had never, ever been to school, to go to school on their very first day. They wouldn't have known what to expect. They couldn't read. They couldn't write. It will have been a very strange experience. And I think we need to just say thank you to the Victorians, actually, for giving us the opportunity for every day from that point on, for all children, whether they're rich or poor, to be able to go to school and to learn the things that we need to use in life. No more children who can't read or write. No more adults who can't read or write. That's the gift that the Victorians gave to us. And spare a thought for those first teachers. What was it like on their first day and that first head teacher? I can imagine that when I come back to the office next week and sit in my chair and think, gosh, how would it have felt on the very first day of our school? It's food for thought, isn't it? Very interesting. I love history. Tomorrow we're going to zoom through the years and we're going to have a look at what school might have been like in the war years, so in the First World War and the Second World War. So I'll leave you to ponder about that. I feel like I found treasure with those logbooks. It's real history in my hands, so I'll try and share as much with you as I can. Okay, see you later, everybody. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.